So I thought I'd talk about equipping men to win. And the question is, are you winning over people or are you winning people over? Because there's a big difference, right? We could have a big conversation about behaviors that I would love to have, but that could take anywhere from 1 hour to 3 days. But basically the conversation is about we all behave in different ways, right? Some of those behaviors are good, some of those behaviors are bad. That says some of the behaviors are effective and some of the behaviors are ineffective. And if we're trying to win over people, as opposed to win people over, that winning over people, those behaviors can be bad. And I would describe them in my language as aggressive. And aggressive, to work, to a project, to something, to be aggressive at it, that's not a problem. But when you're aggressive to people, what that says to the person is, I want my way more than I want your way. I want to get what I want. I don't care what you want. And the deal isn't that maybe that's not what we meant to convey, but the deal is that's what they heard. And so there's a difference when we try to create change in individuals between agitation and irritation, right? Agitation is what a washing machine does. It spins back and forth and it takes dirt out. Irritation is that little swirl I get on the inside of my legs when I run on the beach in a wet bathing suit and the sand grinds in. Irritation is never fun. Sometimes it leaves a scar. It's not pleasant. Agitation, that's where coaching comes in. That's somebody who wants to do something and they're having difficulty working through that. So the question is, are you one to being right over showing love? Or is your motivation to show love, even though you're right? And I have to go back to think about, 1 Chronicles and 13 and the love chapter, right? It says, if you have all this success, but you don't have love, you got nothing. And so the question is, what's winning? And I would go back to Acts and Paul, when he's in Ephesus, and Paul is making a big impact in that city, to the point that many believers are leaving their idol worshiping and they're following Jesus. They're following the way. And so the idol worshipers and the idol worship makers, right? There's the silversmiths. They're real upset because they're losing income because of Paul. And so they create this big uprising and this big riot. And people bring Paul and his people before this court and say, they're costing us this money, they're creating dissension. And this riot broke out. And what I love is that the leader of the city council says, I understand you guys are upset, you silversmiths, but I've got nothing against Paul or his men. I think that's the real testimony, right? Everything Paul was doing, he was doing with love, to the point that nobody had anything that they could lay any blame on. So we think about winning. The goal is winning, equipping men to win. The goal is to win people over. The goal is to be the witness. The goal is to be the message. Whether we're talking about a church, whether we're talking about work, whether we're talking about a home, I want to win people over to my side. I don't want to win over them to the point that I am aggressive to them and cause them to pull back. So that's leadership. Okay.